An eye for an eye. Talk about Jack's job. He was different from the other shamans. People thought that was an old-fashioned, traditional job. But with Jack, that was contrary, except for his weird fashion. Jack was a modern shaman. He could apply new technologies to his job. He usually used social network apps to reach out to his clients, such as Facebook, WeChat. Many clients had used his website to book a schedule with him. Most of his clients were young people, or at least at middle ages. Rarely had a senior reached him out. That was a day at the weekend when Henry, his roommate, played an online game on his phone in the living. There was a knock door sound. "Come in a sec." Henry was a bit irritated, came to get the door. Why would people bother him at that time? He knew that no one could come to see him as usual. People might ask for Jack since Jack had placed their apartment's address on his website. Henry opened the door. A young man in his 20s was standing there. He got a withering, tired face and dark circles around his eyes. "Excuse me. Is there Jack home?" the young man asked. The young man indeed asked for Jack, as Henry thought. "Come in. He's home." The young man shyly stepped into the apartment. Henry pointed toward a room. "He's at that room." The young man smiled at him, shook his head to thank Henry, and stepped towards the room. The young man was Matthew. He was from a small province, came to the city to make a living. He was a waiter at a nightclub. Matthew came to see Jack since he got a weird dream earlier. "You said you dreamt that one dream again and again lately. Could you tell me what you are dreaming?" Jack asked the vital point. Matthew vaguely told about his nightmares. "Lately, I dreamt about a girl, a crying girl. She looked so pathetic." He saw a crying girl at the corner. He was unable to let the girl crying like that. He came to soothe her. "Hey. What wrong? Let's tell me, might be I could help you." Once Matthew got closer to her, the girl turned to him out of the blue and tended to grab his neck. Her face got closer to Matthew, made him scared to death. The girl, or to be more exact, the ghost girl, had no eyeballs. He could see there were only eye sockets. Her face got rotten terribly. Hearing all of that, Jack furrowed his eyebrows. "Except for crying, did she told you any things in the dream?" Matthew dispelled him. "At that moment, I was scared the shit out of me. How could I came close to her or asked her anything? I come here and ask you if you could help me to escape from the girl in my dream. Escape from those nightmares so that I could have a good sleep at night." That was Matthew, who had been bothered by the nightmares in days. He was scared of the night. He could not sleep tight since every time he closed his eyes, he all saw that nightmare. Jack gave him a light smile and explained. "That girl must have been unhappy at something. As long as you don't find the root cause why she was unhappy, you still trap in that nightmare loop." Matthew was confused. He didn't know what to do. He said he was very scared when seeing the girl in his dream. How could he ask what happened to her? "What? Are you kidding me? I don't even have a gut to come closer to her. How could I ask her what happened?" Afterward, Jack stood up and finalized, "Don't worry, I'ma ask for you." That was what Matthew wanted to hear. He came to see Jack for that. The two of them came out. When passing by the living room, seeing Henry was playing the online game, he asked, "Hey, roommate, have free time? Wanna have a walk with us?" At that moment, Henry knew that Jack must have walked out to finish his job. He always got curious and excited about those spiritual events. How could he miss the opportunity? "Okay. My pleasure. I don't have any plans this afternoon. I'll come with you guys." The three of them came to Matthew's dormitory. The dorm was initially a private room, but there was an unknown reason it had been turned into a dorm room. A stuffy room, no windows, so no one would like to stay there, but to Matthew, he would love staying as long as that was a free accommodation. He didn't need to choose. Jack stepped into the room and walked around. Then he squatted in the middle of the room and wrote some weird words by a red marker on the floor. After then, he took out a plastic bag containing a red liquid, looked like animal blood, 2 sticks, and a white candle as well. He demanded Matthew brought him a bowl. Jack poured out the red liquid to the bowl and put it on the top of those words. Then he tied the 2 sticks to be a cross, put them in the bowl, fired the candle, and placed it at the junction of the 2 sticks in the middle of the blood bowl. Afterward, Jack stood up and gave the other 2 a mysterious place. "All right, let's call the girl out to talk." The other 2 got their heart out of their chest, but to be honest, Henry had strongly believed in his roommate. He knew that even the ghost girl came out, Jack could handle her well. Regarding Matthew, he wanted to get out of his nightmare as quickly as possible. Even it was so intense, he tried to pull himself together. Jack closed the door, turned all the lights off, then fired the candle. Right after the candle had been fired, the whole room lighted up. Jack took a fabric doll out, tied it up, and put the doll in front of the candle. Under the candlelight, the shadow of the fabric doll had reflected the wall, zoomed out, and looked like a human shadow. That was normal until the head of the shadow started to move. Henry gave a careful look and realized that, but he still kept quiet. A face was faded in. The ghost girl appeared to fly out from the wall, from the shadow's position. At that moment, Henry and Matthew were too scared to move. But Jack still kept his calm as always, until the girl came out of the wall completely. Matthew was too scared to look at the girl in the face. Just by a glance, he was sure that she was the girl who had haunted his dreams and turned those into nightmares. However, the girl or the ghost girl wasn't aggressive as in Matthew's dream. She stood there, froze, and stared at Jack. Jack spoke up first. "I know you had a miserable life, but you gotta tell me what happened so that I could help you out. Don't hurt innocent people, and drown to your sins." The ghost girl cried out. After a while, she could pull herself together and told them her tragic past. "Please help me." She was Sophia. 2 years earlier, she came there and worked as a waitress at the nightclub. Her family was very poor, so she had to support her family as the big sister. She had her old parents and her brother a student. At that time, Sophia's mother had been sick. In desperation, she asked the nightclub owner Mr. Oliver to lend $5,000 to pay her mom's medical bill. She promised she would pay all of that money back to Mr. Oliver after 2 years. "Master Oliver, please help me. I'll pay you back all of that money in 2 years." He gave her a wicked smile and talked to her as if he was a generous man. "The most important thing is saving your mother, don't worry about money." The following days, Sophia started to work her ass off. She worked both day and night. She had worked overtime and hoped to pay her debt as quickly as possible. But it's life, tragedy still happened to her. One day, Mr. Oliver called Sophia to his private room. Sophia came and knocked on the door. "Master Oliver, do you call for me?" Sophia stepped into the room. She could smell the booze, and Mr. Oliver's face was red as a cherry. She knew that he was so drunk. He asked Sophia to come closer to him. "Here you are. Let's come here and have a seat." Sophia sat next to him. He reminded her about her debt. "Sophia, when will you give my money back?" Sophia froze, face down, and sputtered to him, "Master Oliver, that is lots of money to me. I'm unable to pay you back this time. Please give me 2 years. I'll pay you back for sure." The old man Oliver laughed, pointed out to the wine on the table, and asked her, "Sophia, do you see that wine bottle? If you could drink all of that bottle in a gulp, I'll cancel your debt. You don't need to pay anymore. What do you think?" Sophia heard those words. Even she was so scared, but her eyes sparked a hope. She grabbed the wine up, tried to drink in a gulp, and finally, she could make it. It was heavy drinking. Her belly got a reaction, began to fizzle. Her vision got blur. She dizzily put the empty bottle back on the table. "Master, look, I drank it all in a gulp as you requested. Do you really cancel all of my debt?" Oliver looked at her without changing his facial expression. He leaned towards her and got closer to Sophia's face. "Sophia, you really don't let me disappointed. You got the potential." He put his hands on Sophia's shoulder and touched her. "Look, why don't you use your potential to make more money? If you say, yes, you could make more than that, you know, just a bit relaxing." Even though she got alcohol on her body, Sophia still got her consciousness. She still understood what Oliver had referred to her. A shame feeling had risen all around her. She slapped the old man and cursed him, "You son of the bitch." Oliver was a bit surprised. Then he glared at her angrily. He trampled Sophia down so that she fell to the ground. He called out some gangsters to teach her a lesson. She had been beaten violently and got vomiting blood, then passed out. She had one foot in the grave. Oliver scolded his people. "What are you doing? Why did you beat her badly like this? If she dies, that is all because of you." And then, Sophia had really died. Since there was no one in the room, they had buried her under the room's ground and turned the room to be a dorm to cover the scene. After hearing the truth, Jack gave a sign and asked her, "You already knew who is your enemy. Why you don't come to see him and take revenge? Why are you doing all of this?" Sophia sadly replied, "I don't know why I couldn't step out of this room. Something is holding me back here." Jack stayed quiet a while, then he came out to check the door. Then Jack took out a scissor, surprised. That old man was not only just done bad things, but also knew how to stop you to revenge. He knew that you might come after him, so he put this at the door to detain you. He holds the scissor and looked at Sophia. "You're free now. I take out your obstacle. You could go out and do whatever you want." The ghost girl gave him a big smile. The three of them saw Sophia left the room with her blurred silhouette. Matthew then told us after that night, he heard Oliver got into a car accident. He didn't die fortunately then, but had been crazy. He had been sent to a psychiatric hospital. He always in panic and trash talking about a ghost girl who came to him and asked him an eye for an eye.